creeps, Andy here. So you're in a reading slump and no book is entertaining. You keep picking stuff up, putting it back down 5 minutes later, nothing can catch your attention. I think I've got you covered. So I have created a list of books here that is guaranteed, 100%, absolutely, for sure, will get you out of a reading slump if you like books that I like to read. So when I think about being in a reading slump, the books that help me out are books that are usually smaller, books that are really engaging, like I'm engaged from beginning to end. I cannot put them down. A lot of them have like hooks at the end of chapters and things that you can't put them down. They're just too good. So hopefully today I can help you select a book that will help you out of that reading rut that you're in. Or honestly, these are also great books for people who are trying to get back into reading or maybe want to dabble in the horror thriller section but like don't know where to start. So I don't know, hopefully this video is helpful to some people, but let's just get started. First up, you guys are gonna laugh at me if you've seen any amount of my videos. Darcy Coates. Believe it or not, I just started reading her books a year or two ago, and I have purchased almost every book that she has ever written. That's how obsessed with her I am. And I have a few videos, I have like a whole guide on reading Darcy Coates, what you'll find. I have a whole nother video ranking all the books that I've read of her so far. So I do have a lot of help in the Darcy Coates department. So we're just gonna touch on a few specific books that I think will help you out of a reading slump. But to be honest, like just between me and you, pretty much any Darcy Coates book you pick up is gonna be fantastic. At least in my opinion, it has been for me. Every chapter ends with a hook and I'm just like, how can I put this book down now? I'm not kidding, I cannot put her books down. You know why? There's crack in them. It's the only explanation. She sprinkles her book with crack and then you have to keep reading it and keep buying more. And you can't convince me otherwise. But it wouldn't really be helpful unless I gave you a few specific books, I feel like. And it really depends what you want because she has like a whole variety of books to read. So please check out those other Darcy Coates videos if you want a more in-depth description of all of her books. But the first guy I ever read was Voices in the Snow. This is a Black Winter in her Black Winter series. And it wasn't a book that I thought I would like. It's kind of strange and it kind of evolves into something later on in the series, but it's about these dead zones that pop up and people are going in but not coming out and nobody really knows what's going on, and there are these beings, I don't want to give too much away, that are dangerous, and it's about this one specific girl's journey, but it's kind of a little bit of everything. There's a little horror, a little thriller, a little romance. It's a very, 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 very extremely mild horror read, and I did not even know that I liked romance in my books until I read this story, but I loved the crap out of this one. I've also loved the others in that series too. This one is a haunting story. It's called The Haunting of Leigh Harker, and this book is just so different from any haunting book that you have ever picked up, I can guarantee that. And this book I loved. I absolutely loved it. My absolute favorite is this guy, From Below, but this one is a little bit more on the like gross weird side, but it's still fantastic. It's about, I'm not going to give too much about the haunting one just because it's better if you just read it and you don't know anything, but this is about a shipwreck and people going down to the ship and figuring out why it ended up sinking. But also if you want more of like a thriller, this I would say is her most thriller-esque book. This is Dead of Winter. This just came out this year. And I loved the crap out of this book. It is so cool to see an author's growth from her first book, you know, that was published a few years ago in these, they were published elsewhere first, but you know what I'm saying, like published as books a few years ago to this. Like I think this is one of her most well-crafted books. It's a whodunit, people get lost in the mountains and, you know, they get picked off one by one and they're trying to figure out who done it. I will say, the whodunit I think is extremely obvious and I figured it out in the first like 20 or 30 pages, but even knowing whodunit was still a fantastic read. So I still do recommend this guy as well. Okay, enough with the Darcy Coates. I know, I just love her so much. I could talk about her all day, but another book writer that I think can help you get out of a reading slump is Simone St. James. I just read these two books this year. This one is The Sundown Motel and this one is The Broken Girls, and they are both fantastic, excellent, so fun, page turners. You want to know what happens, and I think they're in the horror section, but both of them have mystery in them as well. There's also a little bit of supernatural, but it really does take the back seat for the stories, and it isn't overwhelming and it doesn't convolute the plot, and it's just fun. Like, honestly, these are so fun. I always say that I prefer The Broken Girls, but the more I think about The Sundown Motel, I really enjoyed this one too. This is about a girl whose aunt went missing, so she works at the same hotel like 40 years later and tries to figure out what happened. This is about a boarding school with these girls that have kind of broken homes, are all stuck at. That's in the past. Then you have the present, which is this girl who's kind of coming to terms with the fact that her sister was murdered and her body was dropped where this old school used to be. They find another body there, and then the story continues from there. They're both fantastic, and I would probably argue, I don't know, I haven't read them all, but I've seen your guys' comments and you guys seem to really like this author too. So I think probably any book that you picked up from hers would be just as good. She's a really, really great writer. I really was blown away. The next one I don't have is Pen Pal. This is by Dathan Auerbach. I don't have this one with me. Someone's reading it, one of my friends. This book I could not put down. I could not put it down, and I tried, and I would close it and be like, what? It's all I could think about. It overwhelmed my mind for the few days that I was reading it. I loved the crap out of this book. This is another one where you kind of have to go in without knowing the plot. It's about a man who's looking back at his life and kind of seeing things that are weird with his childhood and trying to put the pieces together. It is so creepy and fun. I think this is one of the best horror books ever written. I really do. I think it's so great. There's some really disturbing stuff in there, but a lot of the book is disturbing stuff where you're almost like removed, you're through these kids' eyes. So you're like, I understand how you don't think this is creepy, but holy crap, this is so creepy. And you as an adult are reading this, you know, putting the pieces together that the child can't really put together, and you're like, there is something wrong here. It is a fantastic book. Honestly recommend this one. I could not put it down. The next one, I mean, just talk about a fun, short, easy, great for fall read. This is Dark Harvest by Norman Patridge, and this book is so fun. It's about a little pumpkin-headed thing that comes to life in the town each October, and the boys in the town have to go hunt it down, and they get a prize at the end for whoever kills it. It is just such a fun, like, folklore-y type of story. I don't think you can go wrong reading this. I really don't, especially if you read this in fall or around October. Next one here I have is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I know I've talked about this book in every video since I've read this book this year, and I'm not going to stop because it's so good. This book is fantastic. It's one of the best books I've ever read. Absolute perfection. Like, I really think this book is that great. I could not put it down. It's an easy read. It's just fun. It's about a man who has a wife and kids, and he works like a mediocre job, but he wonders what would happen if he would have pursued his career instead of settling down and having a kid and getting married. And he gets abducted and gets taken away from his family and wakes up in a place where nobody knows what he's talking about, and the story continues from there. And I'm telling you, it is so fun. It's a lot of sci-fi, a bit of thriller, some romance. It's got everything, and it's just an adventure-packed fun time. If you pick this book up and it doesn't get you out of a reading slump, that's not possible. I don't think that's possible. I really don't. This book is that good for me. You know, obviously these are my opinion, but this book I think is fantastic. The next few here are just straight thrillers. This one was The Overnight Guest by Heather Gudenkoff, and honestly, just picked this one up one day and read it, and I loved this book. It was so fun. You have those intertwining timelines again. You have the past where a family was murdered, and then you have the present where a writer she's writing a story on the murder. This happened in summer. This is happening in winter where there's a huge storm. There's just so much, juxtaposition in this book. It's amazing. It's so fun. I am one of those people who feels like thrillers have all been done a million times before. A lot of the time they don't really catch my attention. And this one I thought was a blast. I really, really enjoyed this one. The next one, The Girl on the Train by Paul Hawkins. I love this book so much. It's about a girl who recently got divorced. She's dealing with a bit of an alcohol problem. And each day on her train ride to work, the train stops and she sees the house that she used to live in with her husband, and it just destroys her. And so she sees the people that live nearby too, and she sees her husband and his new wife and their kid, and then she sees the next door neighbor, and she starts being invested in what happens when the next door neighbor goes missing. And so she kind of inserts herself into the center of this investigation, but because she's unreliable, maybe not necessarily an unreliable narrator to the audience, but an unreliable witness to other people because of her alcohol addiction and the crazy things she's done in her past from being in pain. It leads to a lot more issues, and the story's just fun. It's just fun. It's really interesting to have a narrator that isn't, I mean, she's your protagonist, but she's also an antagonist at times too, and I just find multi-dimensional characters really entertaining. And then the last one that I couldn't put down was This Local Missing Woman by Mary Kubica. I really enjoyed this book. Now, I will warn you, I have read online that some people don't exactly enjoy how everything unfolds at the end, but I liked it. I thought that it was fun. I couldn't put this book down. I was invested. I've read other Mary Kubica books before, and they weren't as good as this one, in my opinion. A lot of them are very mild and not a lot happens in the plot, but this I feel like is a full rounded story. There's a lot of different moving parts in here, and you can't help but to read it all in a sitting because it's just so great. So there you have it. Those are my books that I hope will help you through your reading slump. And even if you're not having a reading slump, I hope you've added a few more of these books to your list. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with another horror video. Bye guys!